All right, now joining us to discuss the province of KwaZulu-Natal and why it remains important for political parties is Director of the Center for Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. That's Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Good afternoon, Professor, and thank you as always for your time. So several political parties are this weekend in KwaZulu-Natal, and it's honestly not lost on us that the province accounts for 20.7% of the 27 million registered voters, which makes it the province with the highest second registered voters. So we fully understand that the parties would all want to be there. But the biggest question is, which political party's message resonates with the majority of the people of KwaZulu-Natal right now?
Good evening, Manget, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, indeed, KwaZulu-Natal has become a hive of political activity. And as you said, this should not come as a surprise, given the fact that KwaZulu-Natal comes second only to Gauteng, both in terms of economy and also in terms of the number of people who are registered to vote. The message in KwaZulu-Natal, of course, is not a single message. It's a couple of messages. But all of them should revolve around one thing, that is service delivery. You recall that just recently, KwaZulu-Natal has been affected by heavy rains, which were disruptive. And also, these rains came at the time when the province was still recovering from the 2021 riots that happened as a result of the incarceration of the former President Zuma. And then, of course, the political mood will depend on how politicians behave themselves. If politicians are preaching peace, then we stand a chance of having a free and fair election, whereby the winner will be a winner in the real sense, not a fluke win, which will then also lead us to other problems. So I think it's a couple of messages, but primarily it's service delivery and, of course, rebuilding the infrastructure that has been negatively affected, and also dealing with the issue of Transnet, which is disrupting traffic and also affecting areas such as Richards Bay and also eThekwini or Durban, as is commonly known.
Professor, based on the campaigning of late, are you of the persuasion, like some other analysts are, that the ANC in fact will dip below the 50%?
You know, my sister, let me be honest with you. I'm not a fan of manifestos, and I'm also not a fan of campaigning, because especially for parties that have been in business for quite some time, if you have been doing your job very well, there is no need to invest a lot of money campaigning. People know exactly what you are capable of. They also know what you are not capable of. Parties that should be campaigning, in my view, are the new political parties and, of course, the independent candidates who will be participating in this election for the very first time. For political parties that have been in the game, that are currently part of the 14 parties that are represented in the National Assembly, they shouldn't invest a lot of money campaigning.
But what of the renewal program? For instance, let's say of the African National Congress. They state that they have their renewal program and they might want to tell some of the voters what they plan to do differently in future. So do they not also have the right, or at least it would be fundamentally beneficial for them to tell people what they plan to do differently?
It's not what you say that matters, it's what you do. You can talk about the renewal agenda. If people don't see it on the ground, you can talk from sunrise to sunset and will still not get the intended results. So basically for me, what is important is action and less talk. We know that politicians are very good when it comes to talking, but when it comes to action, they fall back. Just like it happens with our policies. We have very good policies as a country, and we have good legislation as a country, and arguably we have one of the well-renowned constitutions in the country. But are these documents taking us to where we want to go? The answer is no. And the reason is very simple. We are lagging behind when it comes to implementation. So as much as it is true that the ANC has embarked on the renewal agenda, what they say should not be as important as what they do. That is what people are interested in, not to talk, but more firm action.
Now, the ANC's Provincial Secretary, Bheki Mngomezulu, on another platform, tried to quieten the alarmists, basically painting a picture of an ANC that is comfortable in its support base. He said 65% of the 5.7 million voting population is found in KwaDukuza, Maritzburg, eThekwini, and Umzimkhulu, among others, which is historically the ANC stronghold. Can they still count on these particular voters with the emergence of the MK party and the former president as its leader?
Mangete, let me start here. Mr. Mtolo is a politician, so he has all the right to say the kinds of things that he's saying. I am not a politician. I'm stating facts as I see them. When you look at the trend of what has been happening in recent elections, and then of course you try to understand the current political mood, you will come to the conclusion that most of what Mr. Mtolo is saying will not come to fruition. Even without introducing Mkhonto Wesizwe, which has disrupted all the plans for many political parties, not just the ANC. Even before that, there were already problems within the DA, there were problems within the ANC. The EFF was on the upward trend, but not rising enough for it to replace the ANC. So we already had a situation where there was uncertainty. Now, if you factor in Mkhonto Wesizwe, then of course it doesn't really matter how we have performed historically. The reality of the matter is the support that we've been enjoying will not be the same support come 29 May 2024. So as much as Mr. Mtolo is justified in saying what he's saying, the reality on the ground paints a different picture altogether. So I would say in response to a question that I don't hold the same view as Mr. Mtolo does because I'm not a politician.
Now there's this other dynamic that if they are to relegate the ANC to opposition benches, almost all of the political parties currently would need to work together. But what we've seen now with the campaigning of late, it seems there are opposition parties who are opposed to the ANC but also opposed to the main opposition, to John Steenhuisen's disappointment, because he had felt that they must all focus on this bigger enemy, which is the African National Congress. What is the likelihood of these political parties banding together?
That is not possible simply because people are nursing their political egos. At the moment, they have a common enemy, that is the ANC. The question is, if hypothetically speaking, the ANC were to lose the election, which is what I think is going to happen, they are not going to lose completely, but I don't see them getting the 50+1 threshold. So definitely then it means that the ANC might subside, and therefore it means that a new political player must come into place. But as things stand at the moment, there is no single political party that will replace the ANC, which will then lead to the question we're asking, where we are going to have a coalition. And if you are coalition partners and you don't trust one another, that is a recipe for disaster. For instance, if you have the DA bringing together these different political parties under what was originally called the Moonshot Pact, which is now called the Multi-Party Charter for South Africa, and then the DA decides to boss around the other members, then of course that kind of a coalition is not going to survive. If within the members of the coalition we have people who have a trust deficit, then chances are we are not going to achieve the intended goal, which will then mean that you and I as the electorate will be on the receiving end. We normally say when elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers, and that is what we have to brace ourselves for.
A very scary picture that you paint there. Professor, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That's Director of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, speaking to us of the importance of KwaZulu-Natal.